right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. All right, here we are. Welcome everyone to Higher Journeys. I am your host, Alexis Brooks, and of course, if it's your first time here, I welcome you. I welcome you, but we have a little company this time, guys. We have right here a live studio audience. We're here at the 2023 AlienCon, and this is our very first time recording a podcast with a live studio audience. I want to give them a round of applause because they're what makes this happen. So come on. All right. Thanks, everyone. So today, we're going to be talking about something that I don't know Caroline Cory, my special guest, who was actually on the show 2 weeks ago, as we were teasing this great upcoming event that's now here. We talked about a couple of things. Of course, UFOs have been in the news, have they not, in the last few weeks, whether real or we don't know what they are, but obviously with the Chinese balloon, et cetera, UFOs have been all over the news. So we had to touch on that a couple of weeks ago. But Caroline and I, what we tend to do is kind of go on our own trajectory. And where we ended up is talking about the experiential aspect of contact. This is really where I think it's at, Caroline, for when it comes to this enigma that we're dealing with. We don't know what we're dealing with. Lights in the sky, okay, we see them all the time. But what else is going on? How many out there feel themselves, and I'm talking to you, our podcast audience, as well as our live audience, feel that they have had some form of contact? Raise your hand in the virtual audience, and okay, we've got a few. Well, today we're going to talk about triggers for contact, recalling contact. I'm talking to a lot of people that are feeling as if they're going, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years living a normal life, and all of a sudden, bam, a flood of memories will come back. I want to read a quote to you. This is by a gentleman named Lynn Buchanan, retired U.S. Army Sergeant, first class, well-known remote viewer. You may know the name Lynn Buchanan, who was featured in the book, along with myself, We Are the Disclosure. And he talks about how his trigger to recalling his contact encounters came when he was searching frantically for something he couldn't find around his house. When his wife simply asked, "Lynn, did you check the backyard?" He said his entire experience came flooding back. The trigger was, did you check the backyard? Let me read this quote, then we're going to bring Caroline into the conversation. So he says, "I recall that one night, 25 years ago, when I was lying there on the pallet, I heard something land in the backyard. I tried to move to see what it was. I thought it may be a helicopter of some kind, but I couldn't move. Paralysis. I was frozen. And that's when the abduction took place. Probably 90% of the experience came back, but initially I thought it was just some crazy false memory. 25 years ago, and it came back with a trigger phrase. Hey, Lynn, did you check the backyard?" So this is how it can happen, Caroline. Let's bring Ms. Caroline Cory into this conversation. You and I have talked about this before, right? In terms
Many
of
times.
How this can happen. Triggers. Talk about that a little bit.
So, yesterday actually, I don't remember, yesterday or this morning, I said something in my talk about how every time we have a thought, it has to be over 14 seconds, but every time we emit a thought, it gets imprinted on the very fabric of space-time. And so there have been studies and research done on this. And so think about this. Since the beginning of time, but also since you were born, every time you are thinking, you are emitting this information and it gets embedded. And like I said before, Einstein said, once an energy is created, it cannot be destroyed. So even though thoughts are invisible to you, but they are actual frequencies, it's a form of energy. And so what happens is that when you imprint information of events that happened to you, this is a whole story, right? I went to my backyard, all of a sudden I saw a white light, then I saw this being, then I saw, right? These are thoughts and things that happen to you that you emit, and this information stayed embedded in the fabric of space-time. Fast forward a year, 2 years, 3 years, doesn't matter. The information is still there. Make sense? And so it only takes a few triggers And one of them also is your intention, because part of you knows something happened. I'm not sure exactly what. I remember a light. I remember I was 7 years old. I remember, like you're not quite sure, but you have like those breadcrumbs, pieces of the puzzle that keep popping up from your subconscious, triggering you to ask the question, what happened, at that time? And so it's always about asking and then receiving an answer. So when you say, I just want to know what happened, I just want to know what happens, then a piece of the puzzle comes from that fabric of space-time, the information that you put in. Does that make sense? When you were 7, you said, I went to the backyard and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. So now you're 35 and you're saying what happened, and that piece of information, which is yours, comes back to you. Does that make sense?
So what you're saying is just by virtue of asking the question, what happened, could in and of itself be the trigger?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, let me just say this, because this was a profound thing. I really wanted to talk about this because I know for me, as an experiencer, as well as a researcher, I'm getting so many people that are reaching out to me saying, Alexis, I've never told anyone this, or I'm just now realizing I think something's happening to me. It's like the floodgates are opening, Caroline. We've talked about this before. There's a lot going on. We know we live in a different world than we did, a few years ago, right? Planetary changes, solar changes, and I know you can be all over this. Could what's happening cosmologically have something to do with, I have a feeling more people are being triggered.
Yeah.
Could this have something to do with it?
Absolutely. So also, there's planetary alignments. I don't know too much, like I'm not, I haven't done too much research about astrology, right? But I know about astronomical alignments and things like that. So it's not just from an astrological perspective, but from an astronomical point of view. When certain planets are aligning a certain way, there are openings in space, in this fabric of space-time basically, that happen between point A to point B, which is planet Earth. So we start to receive information from far away in the universe in a much easier way or faster way. So some of those alignments have happened recently, last year and this year. I mean, they happen all the time. But certain alignments also trigger other events, geophysical events, solar flares. How many of you are sensitive to solar flares? Oh my God, like I'm just sitting there, all of a sudden, it's like somebody just whacked me in the head, because the solar flares affect the magnetic field. And your brain channels are tapped into, remember, you are pouring information, you are tapped into the fabric of space-time around you. It's all through magnetism. So it's affecting the magnetism around you and affecting the magnetism of your physical brain, and that's why you feel dizzy and off balance. And also earthquakes and things like that. So my point being, when all of these things happen, it brings you back to the question, like, what's going on?
What's going on, yeah.
What's going on? What happened? Is this encounter happening again? Does that make sense? Because you categorize those paranormal experiences in your subconscious mind as something mysterious, you don't know, something came over you, so on and so forth. So any trigger that seems cosmological or something bigger than you, or paranormal, or something is biblical, is happening, triggers those questions. And as soon as you do that, those pieces of the puzzle from the fabric of space-time start to trickle back in.
I have been saying on my show and just in private conversations, I do talk about this all the time, I believe that we have crossed over and are now, not crossed over, we're still on Earth, but living at a metaphysically potent time. And so as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off as to possibility. You talk about some of the geomagnetic activity that's going on, Caroline. I mean, it's been well known that our magnetosphere is thinning. And in fact, because we have that intrinsic link with everything, both inside and outside of that magnetosphere, if it is thinning, it would stand to reason that we will be exposed to a flood more of information. So do you think, here's another quote. I love quoting Caroline because she's got such profound things to say. I'm going to read this quote that you just said a couple of weeks ago on our show. You said, you are always, I think you just brought this up in another manner of speaking. You said, you are always connected to the aspect of you that's not in physical form, so you are continuously receiving information, downloads or visions. They can come in dreams, meditations, or the other side. And a lot of the time, the other side is extraterrestrial intelligence. Talk about that.
Yeah, in fact, were you guys at my talk earlier today? Maybe, okay. So I was just explaining that, that experience that I had when I was 5, but pretty much explained everything. That, you're on this side of the veil in this body in physical form, but you don't stop existing. You know what I mean? Like you came from somewhere. So you came from a stream of consciousness, from a lineage that is non-physical, right? So the idea is that that stream of consciousness between the physical side and the non-physical side is not severed. It's not like once you incarnate in this body, like that's it, severed, goodbye. The other aspect of you disappears. It's quite the opposite. You are supposed to, that's what my 5-year-old experience was, to show me that we are supposed to maintain this communication. That's the point.
Supposed to.
That we're supposed to. And so we are spontaneously sending and receiving information from this physical brain into the other aspect of our being. And that lineage could be anything. Could be human, could be non-human, could be extraterrestrial, could be universal, could be galactic, could be all. I talked about all these types of beings earlier in my talk. I mean, we only hear about 3 or 4 different types, but there's thousands of lineages that maybe you see. That line of communication is always open.
And if you want it to be particularly, and yet there are individuals who have no conscious desire to have contact, although there are a couple people here that say, I want to be taken. I'm hearing that a lot lately, by the way. People that are doing anything but looking into these things that will have an epiphany out of the blue that'll just bust them wide open. Why is it, and I know this is a big question, that some people have a recollection or have an experience where others, you and I both agree that perhaps all of us are contactees in one way or another, but not all of us will be conscious experiencers. Why is that?
Yeah, so I was saying, actually, to continue to, where I left off. So this line of communication is spontaneous, meaning whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, it's there. So you are telepathic, you are communicating. What you are doing also is not paying attention, not recognizing, not discerning. And so what happens is that all this guidance, all this information that's coming from the aspect of yourself, is coming through dreams, because that's acceptable. You see? It's not acceptable to be conscious and at the same time channeling another aspect of my being, like medium, weird, So let's call ourselves weird. Let's put it out there. We're all weird, But that's the truth. That is the truth. Does it even make sense to you that, you incarnate and then you no longer communicate with your real aspect? Like it doesn't even make sense. And so that communication is happening during your dreams or during a meditation, because that's also acceptable. But if you train yourself, then you will be able to do both. You'll be able to do it consciously and receive these messages. So when you say, how come some people are conscious? It's a choice, I think, you see.
At the deepest level, it's a choice.
It's a choice, and also, we're not trained. As kids, when we have invisible friends, the parents say, ooh, don't talk to invisible people, you're weird or whatever. And so we shut it off, because we're embarrassed, but it's such a natural thing. And so having said that, It doesn't mean that I'm going to, walk through life and, be talking like, that's not what this means. It means that I have mastery over my human mind. It means that I know exactly how to position my energy. In the morning, I know exactly how to manage what is coming through, what I don't want to come through. I don't want to be talking to some random ET. Like, why? Do you want to go hang out with like all your neighbors? Or are you going to pick the ones that you resonate with, that have a purpose? Creation is purposeful. It's not random and
Absolutely.
stupid, It has a meaning. It has a purpose. And so that's the reason why you don't want to open your channels to whoever is available, And so in the morning, you want to set your intention. You want to align your brain channels specifically with your own lineage, your direct line between the human you to your higher self, to your spirit lineage, spirit family, source. Nothing else. Nobody else. What for?
So
it's a distraction.
Is there an affirmation? I know, there's no one size fits all, but is there a process that you could, we've touched on this before, but maybe we can share with the audience what people can do.
Yeah. So when I realized what I was opening up to since I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, like what if I bring the wrong information? I felt also very responsible because I was like working with people and healing them. And I was like, what if I'm like telling them, something and it came from some ET or something. So the first thing that I did, part of my 20-year work in the area of consciousness, is to diligently work on discernment. I created a protocol over and over. Like I would put myself through the test. I would put myself in first of all, I tried all kinds of meditations to see, because we think, oh, I do mindfulness, that's it. No. Not all meditations are created equal.
That's right.
Meditations can help in different ways, but they don't all achieve the same thing. It's like working out. Does all the weight training does the same thing? No, because this is for the abs, this is for this. Does that make sense? So I tried and I put myself to the test. How does this feel? When you say you're connected to the universe, how do you know? Like maybe you're connected to nature, and that feels so much better than your daily connection that you think you're connected to the universe. How do you know? So I would test myself. I would keep increasing my energy and feel the different frequencies that I was tapping into. And I would feel the difference exactly. At 734 hertz, boom, I was in a different frequency. To 1,000 hertz, I was in a different frequency. After that, I was in a different frequency. My energy field was reaching a different layer of reality exactly at that time. Does that make sense?
How were you able to measure that, though, in terms of hertz frequency?
Yeah, I didn't have a device, but you can tell. Like, that's
Really?
what I'm saying. Yeah, you start to really recognize the frequencies in this way. Mm-hmm. And you start to recognize, okay, so when I get to the moon, that frequency is very, very specific. It's a signature. Mm-hmm. Everything has a specific signature. So the moon feels very, very different than Mars or whatever. So when you train yourself, at one point, you get very quick. That's the moon, I know, because does that make sense? That's Jupiter or whatever.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it took me a long time before I started speaking publicly, because I was like, what am I going to just go say, hey, I talk to aliens or whatever. So what? I wanted to help people,
So what? I love
No, I
that
mean,
attitude.
what's the point? How does that help? Bring attention to me in the wrong way, honestly. And so I wanted to understand the protocol, if there's any sort of science, any sort of real mechanism that could explain how I could have this one experience, one moment I'm here, the next moment I'm speaking telepathically. Hello? How does that work? What did my brain do? And so that's why after all this time, then I created specific protocols, and I made them very simple. The basic one is called connecting to source. I made it super simple, so it's going to feel like you're just doing a meditation, a 7-minute meditation, but you're actually bringing a very specific frequency, also through my voice, because voice has a specific frequency and signature. And so the frequency of source, can align you. It's called Connecting to Source. It's on my website. It's free. And so that meditation, to me, is the base of the protocol, raises your cellular vibration, aligns your brain channels specifically with your own lineage and ultimately source. So then you do that. Now you are kind of, first of all, you're protected, and you are in resonance with only those higher vibrations and wherever you're going. And then from there are different protocols for different things. I want to connect with my spirit guide. I want to connect with my lineage. I want to do this. I want to recall an event or what have you.
But it can be as simple as just asking. Also, I think. I think the protocol is important. But
I have people who say, "I just want to, speak to an alien," for example.
Yeah.
You see, I would ask, but I would be very specific.
Right.
And that's another thing, like people would say, "Oh, you're so lucky because you can see the subtle energy." Like I can see beings who are supposed to be invisible.
Can you see auras around people right now, Caroline?
It's not just auras. I see the beings. Like I see the space.
That's where all those seeds are. I knew they were filled.
Yeah, right? Yeah. There's a cute little Arcturians right there. So people say like, okay, well, it's a lot of fun, but I tell you something. Once you see, you cannot unsee. And so I started to see things that I didn't want to see. I was like, oh my God, does this really happen? Like, did I just like make this up? There would be like these weird black like things like floating like this. I don't like scare you, but just to give you an idea, and like they would latch on to people, and I realized these are attachments, and I could see what they were, and I'm like, wait, what? But then I would have validation, because when I'm working with this person and they tell me they have this problem in their shoulder or whatever, and I get this thing out and the problem goes away, this means that what I saw was right. You see what I mean? So that's how I learned and I trained that what I was seeing what was, and what I'm trying to say is that once you see everything. So you have to be prepared. And also on some deep level, a lot of people say, I want to connect with an extraterrestrial, or I want to channel, I want to be a medium. But deep inside, you know that once you open up, you're going to open up. And so that's why having the right protocols, having the right information, and the right intention.
And right intention.
Exactly.
That's the main thing. And if I can just add, we talk about the speaking voice and how powerful that is, because it is a vibration. It emits an energy, and it travels. Emoting is incredibly important. So when if you're going through a protocol, or you're simply just saying, I want to have an experience, I believe, Caroline, I feel that universe feels before they hear. That emotion is a carrier wave in and of itself, yes?
Yeah, for sure. And most people feel that's the first way of kind of communicating with the universe. It's very difficult. Some people see, some people cannot visualize at all.
Right.
Very few people hear. And I can tell you something, it's the hardest way to be clairaudient, because if you're not trained and you hear stuff, you're like, wait, where did that come from? It's very disturbing. And so it takes more training because you have your mind chatter, you have your conscious thoughts, everything is mixed together. You have your subconscious thoughts. So you're saying one sentence, but half of it is your conscious intention, and then you have subconscious things popping, and then you have other beings popping and telling you stuff in your ear. So to be clairaudient is very difficult. In fact, a lot of schizophrenics are actually clairaudients.
That makes sense.
Because they're actually hearing real things, and they can't figure out, like, wait. And so that's why I recommend people opening up to do it very gradually. first through the sensation, that's kind of the safest, you know?
Great.
Because you're just sensing.
Yeah.
And then you open up to the visual. Some people see geometric patterns and things like that.
I do, actually. Yeah, that's a whole other story. Listen, we're about to take a short commercial break, Caroline, and when we come back, we're going to hear from you, because when I come back and ask the question that we started out with, I have a feeling a few more hands are going to raise. What do you think?
I am sure.
Okay. All right, everyone. We'll be right back. We are living at a time of great challenge and incredible opportunity. A time when taking life into our own hands, charting our own course, and finding our own answers is more accessible than ever before. During this time, you may be asking yourself, what am I called to do? What if I could discover not only my own inner healing power, but help others all over this planet discover theirs? We all have the ability to heal ourselves, but it takes a special approach, a unique approach. Quantum healing hypnosis technique, also known as QHHT, a method developed by pioneering hypnotherapist and past life regression expert Dolores Cannon, is the approach that thousands have used and taught to access the deeper aspect of the self for healing at the core level. We all have the ability to tap into the higher self, the oversoul, the higher consciousness, and we have the means to help others to do the same. QHHT is designed to help the individual access the subconscious, the storehouse of all information, through visualization at the deepest level imaginable, a process that Dolores Cannon discovered and refined during her decades of working with individuals from around the globe. Training with QHHT will provide the guidance and give you the tools to help others tap that incredible force within. Now, you can access this exclusive training online, bringing the tools needed right to you, so you can assist others in finding their own answers and achieve total healing. This is powerful and needed now more than ever. Be a part of the pioneering work and legacy of Dolores Cannon by learning QHHT. Start today by clicking on the link in the description of this show to get started. And when you do, don't forget to mention Higher Journeys to get a 10% course discount when you sign up. It's time we all take back control of our lives and chart the course for success at every level. It's time to discover the power of quantum healing hypnosis technique by helping others to help themselves. And by doing this, we are helping to heal the world. Welcome back, everyone, to Higher Journeys on site at AlienCon 2023. This has been a vibrant conversation. This has been a vibrant weekend, Caroline, and I have a feeling a lot of people are going to go home different than when they came. So we're going to continue this conversation, but I think I want to bring the audience into this. So we're going to start with some questions. I know we've got, again, give me a show of hands. I'm actually going to get up.
Okay, so when I was like around 13 years old, I remember I was sleeping and I woke up out of nowhere and I saw just like a silhouette, kind of like a shadow standing in front of me. And then I couldn't move, I couldn't talk, and I started getting really like paranoid because I couldn't like basically wake my sister up that was sleeping there with me. And then that's it, that's all I remember. And I woke up next day and I'm like, when did I fall asleep? When was I able to talk? Or I just don't know what happened.
Well, I'm just going to add, if I may, Caroline, you and I both know this is a ubiquitous phenomenon. It's very common. It's known as sleep paralysis, as well as when a partner is next to the person that's having the experience, they can't be aroused, they can't be awakened. So I would imagine you had, I'm jumping to conclusions, I suppose, but this is a very common thing, Caroline, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's quite common. But the question is, was that triggered by her, or sometimes it is triggered by another entity? Because I also see that as a common denominator when there is contact, especially when you're during the night. So you wake up and usually there is this sleep paralysis thing, like you can't talk and you can't move. So that seems consistent. So did you do the regression yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you go back to this experience?
I had totally forgot about it, but I do want to go back to it.
She forgot about it. It was just a little thing that happened to you. So I'm going to post that regression session. So do the regression and go back to the time and see if it was because sometimes you can trigger just like you have sleep apnea, or it's just you. There's no extraterrestrial going on there. But just to see if it's something with you or if it was an extraterrestrial. I can see what happened, but I'm not going to tell you because I want you to do it yourself. And then you can email me, and then I will confirm. All right?
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi.
When I was like in my early 20s, we were driving through the desert one night, and it was like almost like we were the only one there, and we actually saw a big UFO or spacecraft. And at that time, and it was literally had no sound, no nothing, came over our car and almost like followed us, but it was huge, and it stopped over our vehicle or whatever. I just want to know why something like that would happen. And also that ties into like yesterday at your thing, what my cosmic lineage might be.
So yeah, did you do the regression? That's why. I mean,
Yeah,
you did, and.
But not to that point. That was for an injury because I thought that was more pertinent to me. So mine was the injury. But the cosmic lineage, I actually saw just gold energy and like a gold city and things like that.
Cool.
And they gave me like a message, but.
What is the message?
Well, the injury, when we go back to your thing, the injury, I broke my back when I was like 17. And then it kind of healed, and I had problems ever since. And 20 years later, I had surgeries and so forth. So in my going back, it actually showed me a thing of like in a past life or something where I actually had another bad injury with my back with some kind of tree falling and something like that. And the image that came to me was actually finding in this life, and what my journey in this one was actually to find like people that can actually take care of me instead of me myself, like having someone love me unconditionally, which I think that's what my wife was here and how we met.
And the golden light.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I saw.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You just came full circle. When you recollect the past life that's carrying the karmic imprint of what happened to you in this lifetime, you come full circle and you heal it.
Right.
Do you feel clear of that?
No, I did, and we have done past regressions in the past, and it's kind of like, it's different lives, but it has kind of the same message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel it was like the closure, the final closure. I think you can get past it. Now focus on the UFO.
Right.
Right? So, you said, why would something like this happen? I would ask another question, but that's fine too. I mean, these things are happening all the time. I think, why did it happen to you, right? Is that the question?
Right.
That you have?
And then I have asked others, or in past regression, it was like some of my, I guess, lineage basically saying hello or something like that.
Yeah, see, speaking of triggers, it's not so much, it's one of those things where we are asking consciously and unconsciously to remember who we really are. I'm telling you, the bottom line, no matter what you're looking for in life, what you're struggling with, the ultimate question is, who am I and what am I doing here?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the ultimate question. So even though you're not consciously saying that in the morning when you wake up, but subconsciously it's guiding you to keep searching for that answer. So as you are putting this information out, consciously or unconsciously, you are triggering experiences and pieces of the puzzle that's going to remind you. And a contact experience where you feel connected to the beings, or you feel you came from somewhere else and that's your home. Like I was explaining, when I saw the lineage, my lineage, this felt very familiar and comfortable and happy. It was home. It was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. And the humans around me felt like who are these people? You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm saying. So that contact experience, I feel it's in fact, I don't know, just a little side note, because I see who's inside the UFO. Can I tell you? Sure. I mean, because then we're going to opening a can of worms.
This is huge, guys. Go for it, Caroline.
No, but I mean, I'm just telling him what it is without really, kind of reference. But I feel it's actually your spirit family from the future. Okay. So it's like you in the future coming back, And I feel a connection to Jupiter for some reason.
Caroline?
So you came back from Jupiter. That's where the UFO came from. So it's kind of unfair because I'm just giving him like some information.
Cheat sheet.
But this is enough maybe to ask more questions. So go back and do the regression and see what happens.
Okay. I want to add one thing or ask a question that I've often thought about. Do you feel that some people made a pre-birth agreement, Caroline, to be triggered of their connection, we'll call it broadly, later in life? A pre-birth agreement.
Yeah, so what happens is that we all have a prenatal contract. We come in saying, I'm going to go down to earth in this incarnation and do this, 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 and that. So sometimes you have to finish certain things before others, especially if you're carrying things from other lives that are not finished. So that's the reason why you would be, focused on meeting your partner and having children and whatever, not thinking at all once to consciously ask, wait a minute, what is this about? Who am I? What am I doing here? Until later in life. But that's specifically because you have to finish certain things, certain karmic things before you get there.
Okay, thank you. You've been very patient. What's your question?
My question, because it kind of relates to what he was saying, is it possible for your family lineage, somebody in your family lineage, to come back and get you and take you somewhere and then bring you back?
Of course, all the time. I see this all the time. And that's why, so I see people going on a ship, and then I see that they are part of their lineage, their spirit family, and then they're put back. And so I think one guy in my movie, that's what he was. If you guys saw Among Us, I thought that was his story. So what happens is that sometimes you're not paying attention. So some of these abductions are actually benevolent, and they're conducted by your own spirit family, and they're just kind of wanting to take you, calibrate your body or whatever, fix a few things, and ship you right back. And of course, imprint a few memories for you to remember along the way. Yeah, a lot of these abductions it's weird. Just using the term abduction, has a negative connotation, obviously. But sometimes it's like your own family doing that, just, to kind of get you out of your routine, yeah.
I've said this before that, I always get a little confused when I'm explaining it. All abductions are a form of contact, but not all contact would be considered abduction.
Correct.
Because there is this connotation of being taken against your own will.
Exactly.
So I try to be careful in how we frame that. Anyway.
I was not abducted, and yet I was able to go on a type of ship. It's not like a UFO ship. It's more like an observation deck type thing at the level of the planetary grid where I could see the collective consciousness, but I was never taken by force in this way, and yet I've had multiple contact experiences.
What's your question?
I know everyone's familiar with missing time. Have you ever heard of gain time?
Missing time?
Have you heard of gain time?
Gaining time?
Can you specify the way you think it is? Is it that you skip time?
I don't know how to explain it. I was driving home from work one day, and all of a sudden, it's like I came to, like I had blacked out and came to. I was driving on a road, and I didn't recognize where I was. I had to take a few minutes to orient myself. And I was way out somewhere where a road I would never usually take. And I turned around, went home. And by the time I got home, I was home around 15 minutes.
Before you left?
No, it was 15 minutes earlier than I would have been. It's like I gained a half an hour. I should have been half an hour or 15 minutes late. And I got home, I was 15 minutes early.
Yeah. So what happens is that when you go through are you guys familiar with the planetary grid explanation? So what happens is that there's all these lines. People think there are ley lines like on the ground, but that's not how it works. Earlier I was talking about a web. There's a network of wormholes above you, below you, everywhere. It's geometric and it's organized. These wormholes are actually divide space-time, and when you go through one of these wormholes, you're outside time-space. So imagine that there's all these wormholes above you and wormholes below you, points, right? But they're also connected. So it's as if like this wormhole here is connected to this wormhole here, right? So if I am driving and I happen to cross, I'm right under one of these wormholes, right? Or the wormhole could be right there too, but usually they're, above and below. I'm gonna, in that moment, be outside time-space. And then when I resurface, because it's like a beam, like a beam of light, right? It's just like this one area. The wormholes are just wormholes, they're just one space. So if I'm go in it, I'm outside time-space, and you think like, what, where am I, whatever. But then when I reach the other side, I'm back on the normal time-space. So anything could happen during that time that you're outside time-space. You could go faster or slower, or you have a feeling that time stopped, missing time. Does that make sense? There's somebody also who mentioned that they got to the destination 15 minutes before they left, something like that, which is crazy.
Well, that's what happened to you, right?
No, she said she gained, like she was 15 minutes earlier than she should have been, or whatever. But you can literally like leave at 10 and arrive at 9:45.
Yeah.
Hello.
How many people here have been having what I call time anomalies lately, including repeating numbers? Yeah, I figured. Yeah, well, a lot of times that's connected to time. But Caroline, I'm wondering if that could somehow be connected again to this thinning of the veil, forgive the cliche, where if it is the magnetosphere that is thinning and our consciousness is just far more exposed to perhaps these wormholes even.
100%.
That were, okay.
For sure.
Interesting.
And it's like weird sometimes, how some days you're sitting in a chair and then you look at the clock and it's like for 10 minutes last for like an hour. And the other way around. Like you sit there 5 minutes and you look at the clock and it's an hour that's passed, right? This is happening a lot, yeah. So this is definitely happening with this kind of sort of time dilation thing, and I think it's definitely connected to the magnetic field being stretched, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, my Bostonian friend.
When you hear voices in your mind, how can you differentiate which entity, or whether it's yourself talking to yourself, or whether it's a spirit guide talking to you, or an entity from another dimension or another planet? How can you differentiate who is actually talking to you versus whether you're talking to yourself?
Great question. Great question. That's what I told you I started out with when I was very young, because I started speaking telepathically. The first question was, wait, what? Did I make this up? Like, how is that possible, right? So that's exactly what I did. So the way to do it is you should read my book, probably Visible and Invisible Worlds, because I talk about that. But you have to kind of start from scratch. You have to learn to completely empty your mind. So there's a meditation that I call 0 Point, and I don't know if you were there earlier today. No, yesterday. I don't know when I did that. I think yesterday. So you visualize that there's a 0 point, which is a point outside time-space, basically. It's a wormhole, basically. And I was saying earlier in the talk that the geometry of the brain is exactly as space-time around you. This means that your brain has all these tiny little wormholes, and so does space itself. But anyway, the point of wormholes is that you go in and you come out different. This is the way you break down information and energy, right? And so imagine that there is a 0 point, there's a wormhole at the center of your brain, and the first thing you do is you want to bring up everything, whether it's your mind channel or it's your conscious thoughts, subconscious, somebody's talking in your ear, it doesn't matter. So you bring it up through intention, obviously, and you visualize or you intend for it to go down, to be sucked into the wormhole. You keep doing that like a torus. Like you keep doing that. The more you do that, the more you feel like you're emptying your brain. It's going to feel like you are literally taking down the drain, and what you're doing, you're taking all forms and aspects of types of thoughts down the drain outside time-space. Do that until you get to a complete quiet. It's not so easy, especially if you haven't done it. It's not so, yeah. And so once you've done that, then you start to discern every day different types of thoughts. So once you do that for a while and you have completely mastered this perfect stillness, then the next day you speak to yourself. You say, I'm speaking consciously, and you say, today I'm going to have a Cobb salad and I'm going to call my mother, or whatever. I mean, whatever, like conscious thought. And you're telling your brain, you program your brain to recognize what you are consciously putting out. Then the next day, you say, I only want to hear. I mean, I'm like crash coursing something that's very difficult to master, but I'm just telling you there is a protocol, there is a process. Then you only ask for your subconscious mind, subconscious thoughts to come up. Then on another, every day it's a different, until you are until you are basically reprogramming your brain to recognize each thing very clearly. And then you make a choice.
The biggest part.
You have to, I'm talking about after, 2 months training, you make a choice. I only want to listen to my conscious thoughts, and I will allow my conscious thoughts to come out as I need to heal them. And that's it. And your guidance from your higher self, that's your higher self. That's a whole different training. Does that make sense? So there is a way, because I'm telling you, our mind is all over the place.
All over the place, and we're getting input
and that's
from all
why
over the place. Yeah.
We create this mess. That's why. Because I want to create abundance, and I want to create a relationship, and I want to create this and a beautiful house, and my subconscious mind is saying, no way, I'm not worthy, I'm a failure, I'm born a sinner, or whatever, right? Then we have some ET saying, yes, but you don't belong to this earth, you shouldn't be here, get the hell out of here, don't talk to this, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to make sense out of this whole thing?
By making a choice, too. I think it's simple as that. Caroline, there's a lot of instruction we need to be taking from you. Where can people go to find some of these protocols?
Yeah. So CarolineCory.com. I have a lot of free stuff on my YouTube channel, so you can just go and listen to all kinds of stuff. If you want to train, then the website, you'll see online courses, and you can just go. The first class that I recommend is Mastering Your Guidance System, which is about discernment. So start with that, train yourself, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the base of your existence. If you don't know how you're guiding yourself, how are you creating your reality?
Perfect. All right, well, listen, yet another fantastic conversation with my friend Caroline Cory, and this time we get to do it in person.
Yay. And don't forget to watch my movie, Superhuman Film. Yes.
Superhuman Film and A Tear in the Sky.
And Among Us and all that stuff.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I love you. And I love you, Journeyers. We'll talk to you next time. Take care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to watch what's next, plus more to explore. And don't forget to subscribe to Higher Journeys.